Hey, what's up, guys? So, today we are going to talk about, or kind of starting a new series on what I recommend you guys prepare, get ready, get used to for 9.1, and specifically in pushing as high a rating as you possibly can in the next, I guess, patch. I was going to say expansion because it's been such a long time. But yeah, I think what I've always used this time for, it's kind of this awkward time where not many people are playing. Arenas are still around, but they're usually kind of dead. Has been to kind of do a lot of housekeeping in terms of how I play, begin to improve a lot of the things that, I've been putting off because you've been queuing and you don't want to change things up. So I wanted to cover them today just for your sake. And I think the first one I've always found super important. We're going to cover, I think, three in each of these videos. We'll do like two videos or something. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So the first one I want to cover is your key bindings. So a lot of you guys have key bindings that are, I'm not going to say they're suboptimal, and I'll move this little screen so it goes up a bit higher. No, that's not the right one. Yeah, there we go. I'm not going to say they're suboptimal because they're completely your choice. But there's a whole bunch of different keybinds that you might not use. You might be only key binding. Like when I first started, I just key binded like shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out 1, 2, 3, like instead of using things like R and T and G. And these are pretty basic ones. But if you find a button that you tend to find really awkward to press, and then it's something you have to press a lot. So let's say like if you have overpower or mortal strike on shift 7, and you're like definitely gimping at your rotation by putting that there. You know what I mean? Like it's always going to be harder to press. It's always going to be harder to react. Generally, you want to keep the majority of keybinds in sort of one section, and every button should be easy to press. To an extent, there's going to be some buttons that you barely ever press, or you might not really need to press outside of your, it might be like a once every 3 minute thing on some classes. I know for me, like Battle Shout, I put on Control 5. I press that once every game. And sometimes, as more of the loyal viewers know, I don't press it at all by accident. So, I think this is one aspect of changing up your keybinds, but the other aspect of changing up your keybinds, which actually takes a bit of time to get used to, is beginning to use target enemy 1-2-3s and focus enemy 1-2-3s. So what target enemy 1-2-3 allows you to do is instead of clicking on your Gladius or something, you're essentially able to press a single button and target the first person in that stack. And same thing with a focus. So you can put them on focus really easily. You can target them easily. All this kind of good stuff. The second thing is just like on this topic here in terms of targeting, I would spend a lot of time getting used to it and put it on something that is easy to press and kind of makes sense to begin with. So I have a Razer Naga with 6 buttons on it, which sort of go into a circle. So where my thumb sits, if you can envision this, I've got 4, 5, 6, which is why on numpad 4, 5, 6, which is on the Naga, 4 is target enemy 1, 5 target enemy 2, 3 target enemy 6, and then obviously when I press control and press those buttons, it puts them on focus. This type of thing is something that I found really useful and super I don't know. I didn't even realize it was in the key binding sections here. That's how useful it is. I think the biggest thing as a warrior is that you're not using that many like arena 1, 2, 3 keybinds, so you don't ever feel like you need to. But this is way faster than tab targeting, where there's like targets that are far away. I think if you're playing 2s and there's only 2 targets, then you can probably get away with tab. And even in 3s a lot of the times. I played ages, got good rating without ever using this. But now that I have used it, it's really hard not to. Just I would almost say the focus enemy 1-2-3 is the bigger one because it was always super awkward because of the amount of night elves and things that have stealths where you would like be versing like our druid warrior. The druid gets a re and you gotta like move your mouse and re-click his focus and he's already halfway through casting a clone you weren't aware. So these types of things make it really easy for you to essentially just spend more time thinking on the game and less time sort of messing about trying to right-click different things, all that kind of jazz, right? Super easy to do. The other thing is if you still want to, like, I know a lot of people have like tab, which just goes straight to, I don't even know where it is, target nearest enemy. What I would recommend you do is put that on shift tab because it is still useful sometimes if you're in PvE or sometimes with pets and stuff. But you can change that to target nearest enemy player. So your tab, you don't have to tab through like multiple things. And this is one for TBC people as well. I think you can still bind it like this. I'm not sure. Where you can tab on multiple things. Instead of having to tab like 4 times, you can just tab once and hit the right person you need to. So something really useful to use. For healers, I would also incorporate targeting self, party member 1, 2, if you're playing 3s, and maybe even pets sometimes as well. This is because I see a lot of maybe newer healers still using like the click or the mouse overs. When you do this, like when you're clicking your team members, it's really hard for you to like go and click the enemy team and do something that's really important. So doing something like this obviously is just going to it's going to feel super awkward firstly to begin with, but then afterwards when you get used to this, you will be much faster as a player. Obviously, there's heaps of players and professional players who don't use these, right? And you can see they'll tab, they'll click, whatever. It's not that big a deal, but what it does make you do is if you're starting arena or you have this time like mid-season, go change all this stuff because you're gonna have ample time to practice getting used to it. And I'll put it like this: like, sure, you can still hit 3K, you can still hit rank 1, clicking and doing all this other stuff, but this just makes it a little bit easier for you to do without really taking too much of your effort. I guess the other thing to note is, if you aren't used to certain add-ons, so this is kind of the third topic, is to go and set up the add-ons that, like I personally recommend, Ability Team Tracker, right? It lets you see what, I think I can test it. I can show you what it looks like. I've covered this on other videos, so can I show on self? Yeah, there we go. These are mine, right? So if I had rain frames on, you'd see me with these on, and you can track and change all of these as well. So where there's like a class you normally play with, like a paladin, and there's things missing, you can add stuff. You can add like ability spell IDs for things like covenant abilities, all this kind of stuff. I'd get used to this, configure it so it works for you. This is a really useful tool that firstly clears your comms because you know what someone has. Secondly, you can call for stuff a lot easier, right? So if I'm playing with a paladin who might be, not very like experienced, I can be like, hey, maybe we'll use sack on this one. And they can press the sack and you know what they have next. If you're a healer, you can call for defenses from your DPS, which is one of the best, like that's what makes you a really good healer, is when you're able to call defenses on behalf of your DPS. So highly recommend you set this stuff up. The other thing is if you do a lot of BGs, RBGs, battleground enemies, set that up. Super easy to use, and you can essentially just set it up so you can always have clearer raid frames when you're in RBGs. Big debuffs. I think this is a pretty straightforward one. The only thing I would just double check is look at your priorities. So I have my priorities like this. This is just how I like them. I think I generally want to see immunities first. Crowd control, like spell immunities, and then crowd control after that, and then defensives and offensives sort of a bit further down. You can kind of change these depending on how you feel, but generally this is what I find to be useful. And just for instance, like spell immunities are things like these ones, which are essentially you are going to waste an ability. Crowd control is, when something's on them, and then defenses are all this stuff. So usually that's sort of how it lines up. If they've got an immunity, they're usually not going to have a defensive buff, so you don't really need to see both. The interrupt one is really useful if you're, having a hard time seeing whether you've kicked someone or not. This will always tell you. So something super useful to do, and you can put this on enemy plates as well. I have classic numbers because it looks fun, and you should always disable the blizzard numbers. So I don't know why that was off. Maybe I set it up. Normally, Deja character stats. I've got a lot of questions about this, which is essentially like how I set it up. I've just got this like here to kind of, I should probably just see if I can turn something off on here. I don't think I can. This is really useful just to see like detailed breakdown of all your abilities and what you've got. You can even see item level and kind of turn stuff on and off, which you'll see up here anyway. and you used to be able to see corruption on a level. I really like this. Actually, you can turn these on as well, so you can see exactly like the impact instead of having to mouse over. But this is just a really good way that you can kind of track everything. Not super important. Detail is similar. Diminish is one that I think is super underrated. It essentially tells you when you're on DR for things. Obviously, as you get more experience with PvP, you'll generally have a good feeling for the 20 seconds or whatever it is when you're in DR. But doing something like this, and you can even change the colors of it, you can change the size. This just helps you kind of understand that like when something's going to happen. So if you've been polyed 3 times, they're probably going to swap the poly to your healer, and then vice versa. If your healer's been polyed 3 times, you know that the go's probably over on you, and they might poly you and then swap to your healer, stuff like that. Things like tracking stun, all this good stuff. Really good way to like just develop your overall game sense and knowledge, and something that I think is hard for a lot of people to use initially just because you're not used to looking at that. But the more and more you understand how the pace of Arena goes and how important tracking diminishing returns are, this is going to be super useful. Other things I would say, this is super up to you. I've shown nameplate cooldowns and other ones, but because I would say get a cooldown tracker, whether it's nameplate cooldowns, I forgot what the other one's called. Get something that tracks kicks, cooldowns, all this kind of stuff. Reflex is something I would recommend getting. Just because you can kind of see how you track against certain things, the games you've played, all this kind of stuff. So from this, I know Ludus Labs has this whole like software, but you can even check on your own system. I've just pressed the wrong button there. I did not mean to do that. But you can see like most common teams. So most common recently has been RMP or RP, Windwalker Monk, Holy Pally Warrior, Druid Resto and Warrior, Chamois Warrior, Disc Warrior. So you can see all this kind of stuff. You can see pretty much everything from the entire season. Super useful to use just because it lets you like kind of track what's going on. And I always enjoy doing stuff like this, and you can analyze this in more depth with the Ludus Labs tool and really get an understanding of the counters. So honestly, there's heaps more I want to cover, but we're going to save it for another video just because I don't want this to be like a 30-minute video. I hope all you guys are doing well. I've been sort of, coming back onto the scene, doing a lot more videos as well. Haven't really been finding the motivation to stream yet, but I will stream soon. Same thing with Patreon. I think it's just like, for me at the moment, with everything going on, doing videos is one way that I can kind of do this on my own time, and I don't really have to do too much else, easy to control. But in 9.1, I'm going to be streaming way more. I'm really going to try and be pushing on every toon, right? Every class. And we're going to do a lot more arena stuff. The other thing, which I'll do a video on as well, probably in 10 minutes from now, is that I will be starting this RBG guild soon. I might have already, I don't know the order of these videos because I schedule them sometimes. I'm going to be starting an RBG guild or arena guild as well, but largely RBG teams on Tichondrius. So we're going to set that up soon. The whole idea of this guild is just to make a really, not wholesome. I feel like wholesome kind of makes it sound a bit like churchy and religious, but I think the idea is I want to make a RBG guild where people are not toxic, where we're just chilling, where it's fun, but we still kind of get the rating we want and push. I've always found that I've been able to establish that in my arena teams. I don't play with people that are toxic generally. And it's always worked out well for me, but I know a lot of you guys with RBGs have been saying, look, I'm having a hard time finding non-toxic RBG groups. So I want to set that up for 9.1. Maybe we'll set it up a bit earlier in 9.0 just to get started. But yeah, jump in the Discord, which is in the description if you're interested in joining that, and shoot me a message, or we might make a post in there or something where people can kind of ask, and keep a lookout for that. All right, guys. Hope you guys have an excellent week. Take it easy. Peace out.